now is the time to negotiate.
You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth!
He gave them hope.
We shall never surrender!
Darkest Hour, rated PG-13.
Can anyone explain to me, anybody at all, how Robert Mueller's investigation can be described as fair, impartial, not biased? A lot of questions, John, being raised about, okay, this team that literally has covered for Hillary Clinton and put all these biased people going after Donald Trump, you know, what would it take to get rid of a special counsel?
It's no coincidence that the only people raising questions about the impartiality of Robert Mueller and his Russia investigation are Donald Trump and his allies, nor that those questions are arising just as Mueller's dogged probe of this rotting fish moves closer to its head. The hunt for something, anything to impugn Mueller has become a white whale of sorts, not only for Fox News hosts, but also, as the Washington Post reported this week, for Republican lawmakers and activists. All of them engaged in what the Post describes as a multi-front attack with one clear goal: to impede Mueller's investigation, dismiss any finding that's unfavorable to Trump, or build a case for Trump to make a Nixonian attempt to fire Mueller outright. And joining me now are former FBI Special Agent Clint Watts, MSNBC Intel analyst Naveed Jamali, Natasha Bertrand, political correspondent for Business Insider, and Scott Dworkin, senior advisor to the Democratic Coalition Against Trump. Thank you all for being here. And Clint, I'm going to start with you. Let's listen to Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis and another congressman named Matt Gaetz questioning the credibility of the FBI. This is extraordinary in a Thursday hearing with the director of that agency, Christopher Wray.
We have a question about how this dossier was generated for political purposes. It ended up in the FBI's possession. What did the FBI do with it?
So we don't know whether Mr. Mueller recruited people as a consequence of their bias. We don't know whether Hillary Clinton was treated as special. We don't know whether the FBI used taxpayer money to go and buy a dossier to discredit the president.
Clint, you were in the FBI. You were a special agent with the FBI. Have you ever heard Republican members, or really Democratic or any members, questioning the core credibility of the FBI?
No, and it's also quite ironic because if you remember a year back, in the lead up to the election, some were saying the FBI is Trumpville, that it's overly supportive of Trump. And so the FBI gets battered back and forth because they can't come forward and really defend themselves in these arguments because they're trying to be professionals. What's most alarming about this, both from the Hill and from the president, is they are degrading a U.S. institution, which is law enforcement officers, the FBI, which then not only makes their job harder in this case, but also makes it more difficult for them to mete out justice and do investigations around the country. So why would you want to harm a U.S. institution that is now going around trying to do law enforcement, national security cases, and investigations? Both entities, whether it's the Hill or the president, are just hurting the FBI.
Yeah, absolutely. And Natasha, you had a piece out this week that talked about how some people inside the FBI are feeling about being demonized. And just before I get to that, just to put a pin in what Clint said, this is the excerpt from the late Wayne Barrett, the late great Wayne Barrett, back in November, talking about the sort of Trumpy FBI in the New York region here, and it's hours after Comey's letter about the renewed probe that was leaked on Friday. Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, went on a radio show and attributed the director's surprise action to the pressure of a group of FBI agents who don't look at it politically. The other rumor that I get, Giuliani said, is a kind of revolution going on inside the FBI about the original conclusions not to charge Hillary Clinton being completely unjustified and almost a slap in the face of the FBI's integrity, said Giuliani. I know from former agents, he said, I know that even from a few active agents. So Giuliani was claiming that the FBI actually wanted to go after Hillary Clinton and wasn't able to. Fast forward to today, and Republicans are essentially going the other direction and saying the FBI is not biased, is not complaining that they can't go after Hillary Clinton, but that they're biased in favor of Hillary Clinton. And this after a top FBI official that was assigned to the Mueller probe was removed after sending text messages that were deemed anti-Trump. Tell us a little bit about how all of this is playing inside the agency per your reporting, Natasha.
Right. So I spoke to over a dozen former FBI agents, some of whom retired as recently as this year. And they said that this notion that the FBI is suddenly this bastion for, liberals who are supportive of Hillary Clinton is just absolutely ridiculous. If anything, the Bureau is predominantly a conservative place. Last year, there were multiple reports. Giuliani said himself that he was getting information out of the FBI about Hillary Clinton and about the FBI perhaps reopening the investigation into her email server even before it happened. So someone in the FBI was leaking directly to him. I also spoke to these agents who, many of them worked directly with Peter Strzok, and they told me that he was a professional career FBI agent. He never showed his political biases. He never expressed them, and no one ever really asked because no one really cared. I'm sure that Clint can probably speak to this even better than I can, but the idea that agents are not allowed to have political biases or political beliefs is just pretty ridiculous, according to the ones that I spoke to. The idea is that the FBI screens beforehand to make sure that these agents are able to put aside their beliefs in order to pursue an objective investigation. And if they can't, if they show that they aren't able to, then they aren't allowed in the FBI in the first place. So,
yeah. Clint, does that check out with you? I mean, when FBI agents are allowed to have political beliefs, right?
Absolutely, and they all have the right to vote as well. But when it comes to their job, you're talking about FBI agents working in teams. They follow the letter of the law. They have procedures. They have very strict procedures, and there's a lot of governance and oversight of that. So all of these accusations ultimately don't do anything for the American people and actually harm them.
And Naveed, let me go to you, because you were, when you were working as a double agent, it was the FBI that you were working with, that agency. I want to let you listen to Louis Gohmert of Texas, another congressman, reading off a list of FBI employees to inquire as to their political potential bias. Take a listen.
Are you aware of any of the following people openly aligning themselves with the political bias expressed by McCabe or openly speaking against this administration? First, Carl Gattis.
I'm going to quarrel a little bit with the premise of your question about Deputy Director McCabe.
All right.
As far as Executive Assistant Director Gattis, as I said, he's been a complete professional, and by that I mean to include
Have you heard him
apolitical in his
open
interaction with
aligning
me.
himself with political bias against the Trump administration?
No.
Josh Skule.
No.
Larissa Mincer.
I actually don't know who that is.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Fair enough. Brian Parman.
No.
All right. Thank you.
Naveed, you've briefed members of Congress in the past. I mean, what do you make of what you just saw?
I think it was a clear message that's reading off names, that's essentially threatening FBI agents. And look, these people that he's referring to, these are senior administrative people. These are on the top echelon. This has an impact, as Clint was talking about, to the special agents, the rank and file, the people that actually do things. You know, an assistant director at that level, they're not out in the field. They're not actually doing things. It's the ones that are out in the field. And I still have friends who are counterintelligence, in the counterintelligence division. I spoke to one, and he was telling me about Pete, and who was a mentor to him. And he said, when the call came out to join when they were doing a manpower call to join the Mueller investigation, I'm glad I didn't join because I don't want to go through this. And I think that this has an impact. This has an impact on national security, because when you have FBI agents worried that joining an investigation, doing their job, could lead to them being pulled through the mud and having their beliefs exposed and used against them in terms of doing their job, my God, that's a chilling effect. This is not what we should be doing. These are, as Clint said, these are dedicated professionals. Look, Joy, I dealt with these people. I'd go into places where I was worried if the Russians were going to harm me, and I had to trust them. And I did. And I think that, that trust for me, I wish that America could have that. I know that we don't get to see what the counterintelligence folks do, but they're professionals, and their biases, their beliefs, whether they were Democrat or Republican or who they voted for, that didn't impact how they did their job. I mean, they were just devoted and dedicated professionals. And to have them sort of run through the mud here is just, it's disheartening. I mean, that's the only thing I can say.
It's interesting to see the turnabout here, Scott Dworkin, because, Democrats, traditionally have been less trustful of the FBI. You go back to the J. Edgar Hoover days, the persecution of people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You now have Democrats actually defending the agency and Republicans interrogating them and reading off names inside of that walls of Congress. And you've even seen, Scott, I want to get your comments on this turnabout happened at the top of the Republican Party. Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, back in May, said this about Robert Mueller, who is the special counsel investigating Russiagate. Robert Mueller is a superb choice to be special counsel. His reputation is impeccable for honesty and integrity. Media should now calm down. Here is the self-same Newt Gingrich on Wednesday on Laura Ingram's show on Fox.
Mueller is corrupt. The senior FBI is corrupt. The system is corrupt.
Scott, are we just in the upside down? What is going on?
Yeah, this is a little bit crazy. I mean, think about it like this. Mueller caught those texts, first of all, so he's tracking everyone's communications, so that's a plus. And when he caught those texts, he removed the FBI agents. So, you know, it's not like he kept them on. If he kept them on, there might be an issue. But the whole idea behind this is absurd. They're trying to concoct another kind of scandal linear to the actual Trump-Russia scandal, and it's just absurd. When you attack the FBI, remember you're attacking former police officers, former people that are military officers, and so it's again attacking our intel agents. And I really, it's just absurd. The whole thing is absurd, and it's really disheartening to see them trying to rip apart our intel agency like this. It's really, really absurd is the only word I can come up with.
Yeah, and Scott, I'm going to stay with you for just a second because we know that from the Hill that Rod Rosenstein, who's the Deputy Attorney General, is set to testify before the House Judiciary Committee next week. Do you detect out there, I know you pay attention a lot to what's going on in sort of the right-wing media world, a push to try to convince Donald Trump to take the chance and fire Bob Mueller?
Yeah, absolutely. No, so what I've heard from the Hill is that he's already talked about it with his counsel, he's talked about it with his advisors, and he's trying to find an opening, and Congress is apparently trying to give it to him. I really don't think that there's going to be an opportunity to, because it looks like Mueller's out in front of this, and it looks like he's got a feel on where they're going to try and go with this, and I don't think that they're going to be successful. I think Mueller's got them outflanked.
And same question to you, Natasha Bertrand, in your reporting. Are you detecting an effort, or at least sort of an increasing effort to try to convince Donald Trump that he could get away with firing Bob Mueller?
There's definitely an effort to discredit the entire investigation. This is kind of the best line that they've been able to say ever since the Strzok text messages came out. That's kind of been the saving grace to politicize, to characterize this investigation as just completely politicized and a witch hunt. But in terms of Trump being able to fire Mueller, that would be a very difficult process. I mean, he would have to get Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to agree to fire him. And of course, if Rosenstein did so, I mean, we all remember what happened back when he wrote that memo outlining the reasons why Director Comey was no longer fit to serve in the FBI. I mean, there was a huge amount of backlash, and it did a lot of damage to Rosenstein's reputation. So you really have to wonder whether or not he'd be willing to take the fall again by firing Mueller. And then if he were to resign, then Trump would have to appoint someone who's not recused from the Russia investigation, like Sessions, to then actually, you know, undertake those orders and fire Mueller. So it would be an entire process. It would be very lengthy.
Yeah. We shall see. Clint Watts, Naveed Jamali, Natasha Bertrand, thank you very much. Scott Dworkin will be back. And coming up, Pussy Riot is here. Stay with us.
Looking for a